Okay, I would like to look at research in this workshop. Already we've been doing a lot of research, I would say. Our approach in these workshops is very much taking a question and then trying to explore around the topic, the theme, and the question for oneself to generate knowledge through investigation, experimentation, and exploration, and always sort of producing a sort of openness. But there are many types of research. I mean, you could research by watching dance, literally going to see a performance or witnessing a dance in a studio or in the street or from videos or on TV, like wherever dance occurs, you can research by witnessing. You can also research by taking classes, by going to someone's dance class and experiencing the dance, trying out different styles, different aesthetics, different approaches. You could also research, as we've been doing a lot of, through movement research, which is just another word really for improvisation. That's not true, sorry. Improvisation is maybe a form of movement research. So in movement research, we go and explore movement through doing. We maybe bring some set material or a task or a topic, and we explore around it. Quite traditionally, this is why I made a mistake earlier, movement research is a sort of open exploration of something, a topic or a theme or a quality or maybe even specific steps that one then improvises with in order to research. But movement research is, I think, could be considered a much broader term. So, and then there is research for creation, right? Like when you're creating a performance, perhaps you're reading a story, a text, or you're influenced by a painting, so you can research around those topics in order to create the work. So literal research, going out and finding more knowledge about the thing that you're creating around. And then there is artistic research, which it also has different forms and things, but in a sort of general sense, artistic research is a way of thinking through making, where practice is not an illustration of knowledge, but a method of producing it. The artwork, the process, and the reflection form a singular field of inquiry. Questions are asked not only with words, but with materials, bodies, time, and attention. What is discovered may resist generalization, remain situated, and take sensorial or experiential form rather than a propositional one. So here we start to see how artistic research differs or tries to differ from, say, scientific research. And we'll touch more on that, I think, as we go. I can just say it's quite a new field, artistic research. It was developed, you started to see, PhDs in the 1990s. So you see that institutionally it's a lot younger than, say, scientific research and other forms of research that are already sort of being practiced and used. Great. So to start, I'd like to research a dance aesthetic or style. I mean, those words are sort of interchangeable. So I'd like you to go and you can take a workshop maybe in that style. You could watch a video to experience it. You could watch a video of someone dancing it as research. You could read about the style. You can perhaps go and speak to someone who dances that style. But I'd like you to investigate and research and then experiment with a specific aesthetic. Look at its history, perhaps. Look at the imagery that it's used, it's the context that it came out of, the political, social relevance of the aesthetic, and then use that as a way to create a dance. And that doesn't mean that you have to dance in that style per se, or dance in that aesthetic, although you can, but use it as a way of producing a new choreography for yourself. So that's the sort of the first assignment. And of course, this you can do over a long time. You can go away and research for a month if you wish, and so on, especially if you want to take some workshops and things. But also consider how you're researching, like what your methods are, and how they maybe will influence. If it's experiential, how that will influence the choreography, the dance that you're dancing. And if it's primarily only visual, how that will affect the dancing and the choreography and the experience of the dancing, because you're working with a visual form. Does it translate? Does it not translate? There's lots of possible ways of doing this small assignment. And of course, the assignment can be super short as well. You can take 15 minutes, do a crash course on YouTube, researching, or on Wikipedia, researching a specific aesthetic, use that, and then create a short, small dance. And the dance doesn't have to be set. It can be an improvised dance, finding prompts or some sort of some cues, instructions that you want to follow that result from the research that you've done. Okay, so go away, do that, and we'll come back after. Great. Now we've started to do at least like little bit more long form assignments. I'm always happy to hear and to see perhaps what you're working with. If you wish to contact me, we can have a dialogue, or simply you can just share what you've been working with, what you've found from these assignments. This is extremely rewarding for me to think about these questions and to put them into a recorded form and to distribute them. So whatever input or feedback I get is so welcome and so rewarding for me. So please, if you do have any questions or thoughts or things that you would like to show and dialogue with me, please find my email on my website, or I think even in the description of the podcast. So now, since last episode we were speaking about care and risk, and safety. That's why I paused. I'd like us to look at anatomy. Or perhaps we could say even like the functioning of the body. And again, you can research articles, books, papers. You can research through videos and different medias on different functionings of the body, different ways the body can work and operate. And especially in this case, because the sort of health and well-being of the body, it's something in part we tend to both is very important in dance training and dance practice, and at the same time it's something that is also poorly researched and doesn't always get through to the dancer that is dancing. At least that's in my experience. It's such a central question. We speak about warm up and cool down, but how well researched it is and how much of a critical approach we have, and that's really crucial here, differs dramatically, and it's more or less. And I think it is because, like we researched the aesthetic of dance. Now we're researching more the scientific understandings of dancing, and because we're constantly sort of marrying the two, I feel like sometimes one gets forgotten for the other, and this is just something we have to keep in mind, I think, as we're practicing dance and working with dance. So with that in mind, I'd like you to research a function of the body, some part of the anatomy perhaps, and be critical of your sources, which you should do all the time anyway. The same with everything I'm telling you. Please check and double check the validity of what I'm saying. I try my best, but we're all human. And do that with your sources, and try to find different studies or different information around the topic that you're exploring. And I'd like you to develop perhaps a warm-up for yourself, something that would allow you to move in a specific way, right? Like if you want to be doing higher jumps, perhaps you can research the anatomy of the legs, so to speak, and the strengthening and flexibility needed, and mobility, and the different thought and practices and research that has been done around these questions, around this anatomy place. You can create a warm-up for that. Like, how would you prepare for these things? What would the body need? What would the legs need? Or you could create a cool down, researching what kind of things would be needed for a cool down, or even a choreography. Perhaps there is a way of creating a dance that is based off of safe practices or anatomical practices that you can discover. So look at articles, read books, go to the library. If you can find a dance library, there are some amazing ones. Laban, there's one in Stockholm at Eskohor that have so many books on these kind of topics, dance science, sort of based research. And then create or devise a warm-up, a cool-down, or a dance, an improvisation perhaps. Perhaps it's a score with attending to moving in a specific way, attending to a certain anatomical function, or a choreography, some set steps, or a performance or a dance with others. Yeah, it can be whatever you want, staged in whatever way, but with a focus on function and anatomy. Excellent. I hope that was interesting. I hope it gets at least some thought and critical analysis. In a few episodes ago, I did this choreographic score that I sort of spoke aloud to do with standing. And one of the really fascinating things that occurs for me, and it is in this sort of critical response to these questions of function and healthy practice, is the question of, like, how do I stand well? How do I stand correctly? I have so many memories and stories and habits and choreographies within me which are based upon different ideas and different types of anatomical and scientific and personal anecdotes around the effectiveness of standing. I think there's a really fascinating article I read a long time ago which has to do with where did good posture come from? What is good posture? And I think in the research that was sort of claiming, it was saying how there isn't real evidence that a straight spine is a good posture, a healthy posture. In fact, one that sort of is more adaptive and changing to, and more sort of responsive perhaps, is better than just being completely upright. And in fact, historically, it's likely that it came from a fashion when musketeers were very in fashion and they had to stand straight to load their guns or clean their guns or something. Anyway, it's a fascinating space to play and to work. I find it so interesting. However, now we're going to move on, and I'd like that you research a non-dance theme, topic, thing. something that you're interested in, and just treat it like we have with the other two assignments, with the other two prompts, to go out and research something. One of the greatest a really fun task we had when I was studying my master's in choreography at SKH or DOC in Stockholm was by a sociologist, if I remember correctly, and they had us do a sort of field study where we would sit in a cafe and count the people and describe them, and sort of people watching, so to speak, which is a way that people research in sociology. So and I don't remember if we did anything with the research, but here the idea is that you research a topic, a theme, a story, a painting, a person, people, strangers, and use that material to generate a dance. Use that research, that non-dance related research, in order then to produce a dance. So when you first start your research, maybe you have already been researching something, you have an obsession with a character from a film, and you've been obsessively researching them. Continue that research and then see how you could produce a dance from that. What kind of qualities, materials, stages, things would be necessary for that dance to be, or not necessary, because there's no real conclusion, right? But using, say, the research as an impetus to start a dance. So this question of research, I mean, like I suggested, we've sort of been doing it all the time. It's just, hopefully it's at least from, I'm of course still figuring this out. I'm making these things live, so it's part of an ongoing process. But there is something very research based in this approach of dance workshopping and working with dance in this way. So we have these prompts and they're very open and there's no visuals. It's only linguistic or like through the recording. And you have this ability to approach it in whatever way you want, and hopefully there's also the space for you to sort of have autonomy over the exercises and the practices that we're doing in order to find your own solution. And also because the prompts are quite brief and they're recorded, so there's little to no ability to sort of ask follow-up questions. There's a sort of need that you following have to then engage sort of more actively with, okay, I think they want me to research care. How can I do that? How do I explore that? How do I investigate that? You have to sort of be a little bit more active. And from the beginning, we started with the question of what is dance, right? So there's already a sort of research quality to this work that we're doing through establishing questions or a topic or a theme, and then working around that, circling around it, finding a singularity, and then trying to discover what that is. And in all of these assignments we've had today, they could be really, really niche. You know, you could just take one movement from like a pirouette or something, and just work on that, work on how to do that safely, how to strengthen and do body conditioning to get to a place where you can perform that in the way that you want, and how we can practice and continue a routine to do that. And then also, what does it mean historically, socially? What does it mean in different places? So there's loads of things we can always be working on and going deeper with and gaining greater understanding of. And I truly believe the more we understand about what we're doing, the greater control we have over it, you know. So if you wish to take this further, make it a practice as a performer or as a teacher or as a practitioner in another way, then you have the ability to understand as much as possible, and to continue understanding, continue learning and experimenting and investigating what you're working with, in order that you can then make clear choices, because you have a good overview of everything that you're working with, and you know what you're making a choice over. So, and I sort of, just to finish this little rant, I sort of believe that is very much the skill we should be developing as dancers, is a deep knowledge, not just a surface knowledge of knowing certain steps, but understanding how the steps work and can be incorporated into our goals and our intentions with dancing, and our creative practices with dancing. So great wealth with having a research sort of approach. And perhaps just to reflect now, you can journal, you can discuss, as we have done in other workshops. I'd like to maybe go back to what is artistic research, because it is a field that is becoming more prominent, and it's something that you can step into. You can write papers, you can do practical research, artistic research, which focuses more on making artwork as a way of producing knowledge. And so what does that mean? What is artistic research as an epistemic critique? An epistemic means the production of knowledge. This view sees artistic research as challenging what counts as knowledge. Rather than asking, what do we know? It asks, how is knowledge produced? Who is allowed to produce it? What forms of knowledge are excluded? in dance, this includes valuing embodied knowledge, effective experience, collective sense-making, and non-verbal transmission. Artistic research becomes a political, and even when the content is quiet, there is a sort of political advocacy underneath this type of work. So hopefully this is an insight into the ability to use research as a tool in a more recognized way. And perhaps also this allows you to critique my notions of research as I try to articulate them and put them into categories. Perhaps you recognize other ways of researching, or the lack or the non-relevance of research, or how by approaching dance through the idea of research, it somehow removes a quality of dancing that is important for you in your work. And just to finish, one last thing. We often think about intuition in art making, in dance practice, as being really important, and it is. Often we do things before we know why we do them. And just to say, intuition is great. You can use your intuition. Part of research is sometimes looking back on what we do and what we've done in order to gain knowledge around it, so we can just have a better sense, and we can continue using our intuition, going with what feels good, what we like doing, and then spend some time understanding what it's doing when we've done that. So for instance, let's say you know what feels good when dancing, but you don't know why. You could just dance, record yourself dancing, and then research the video, research what it is, or you dance and then write what you felt, and then use the descriptions, the words, count what words are more frequent, and see what is sort of occurring in that intuitive space, so that we can then gain a deeper foundation to our knowledge and have a greater understanding. I promise you won't break anything. At least I don't think so. I think by being critical, by reflecting, we only enrich the palette and the directions that we can go with in regards to our art making and in regards to our dancing. It just gives us access to a greater sort of depth of understanding. And just to say, by deep, I don't mean that once you have a deep understanding, you understand. I think the deeper you go, the less you understand in a way. You become more aware of the complexity and the diversity that underpins the knowledge that produces the dancing that you do. It only enriches. It shouldn't impoverish any of your dancing. So keep dancing, keep researching, and reflect on what and how research is done in your practice. Thank you for listening. I'll speak to you again soon.